The ground is shaking.
We were faced by this giant block of snow. I was trying to, breathe, but I could not breathe at all.
Fuck. Scheiße. Come under my jacket. Come under my jacket. Are you okay? Yeah. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Leisurely Baatein. My guest today is Kuntal Joisher.
Kuntal, the one thing which I wanted to ask you, and I'm very keen to understand, is what is it like at the top of the Mount Everest?
What is it like? Okay, there are multiple things. One is, of course, how you physically feel on the top.
Right.
And physically, it's cold. It's like legitimately cold beyond any imagination. Kind of, imagine that even if you're crying, by the time the tears are just even out of your eyes, they are already frozen. It's that level of cold. Just because you have been kind of climbing for almost 45-50 days, and then you kind of start from the last camp and you climb through the night for 12-13 hours and you get to the top, you're so tired that it's almost as if every cell of your body is tired and you're just knackered, everything. But imagine on one side, physically you feel as if you are just knocked out of the park, but then on the mental side you feel like you are on top of the world.
Correct.
Like there's exhilaration, there's joy, there's emotion, you want to cry out loud, you just want to enjoy the moment. The biggest dream of my life. And I was standing on the top of that mountain, 6 years of insane amounts of training, and when you finally see that top, it is like the best moment of my entire life, the most magical moment of my entire life. But it's such a conundrum because you're like knackered, you have no energy but physically, but then mentally you are on the top of the world and physically you are like probably at the bottom of the world. Kind of like, like such extreme mental kind of, game that you have to play there.
Right.
But no, for me, I thoroughly enjoyed every moment, every second I spent on the top. Wanted to make a phone call to my dad, tell him that I made it to the top. Like how anyone who kind of, like first paycheck aaya life ka, then I always wanted to, give it to my family, kind of, get that validation from my dad, from my mom that, hey, I made it. And so kind of, wanted to tell my family and wanted to click pictures. But then I'm like, you know what? I may never get back this opportunity to come here again.
Right.
Why not just take it easy? Why not just sit back, relax, soak in the view, soak in the moment? And so I think it was overall, I think probably the best 20 minutes of my existence. And I would be willing to do whatever it takes to feel like that again. Unfortunately, I decided to go and climb Everest again, and I got to the top of Everest again, but I never felt like that the second time. So it's so different in that sense. When you do something for the second time, your dream for the first time is always the first time. So I think the first time was amazing. It was good fun, and again overall, I think amazing feeling. And I think underlying emotion was an emotion of immense gratitude that I even have the opportunity to do something like this.
Right.
We all lead such privileged lives that we are able to chase our dreams, that we are able to chase our passions, and kind of the whole feeling that the mountain allowed me to kind of spend some time on the top. I think it was just an emotion of intense gratitude and humbleness that, man, I'm on the top. And again, and of course, kind of, even at the back of my mind, that idea that it's not over. Right. If anything, it's just beginning, because I need to get back down and be in one piece and not die, not make any mistakes. So tons of emotions and tons of things kind of going on, happening in the body, happening in the mind. But overall, I think kind of the 20 minutes that I've never experienced again in my life. So that roller coaster of a kind of a 20 minutes not happened again to me.
Right. I mean, I could understand that. I could, the passion with which you mentioned and you described was phenomenal. But what I wanted to understand also is, as you spoke about, keeping your mind calibrated. You're up, but you need to also calm down. You're tired, but
Right.
coming down. So I wanted to understand, we've all heard about climbing to the top.
Right.
But what I also want to understand for me and my viewers is how difficult it is to climb down. That 20 minutes, you're on top of the world, you don't want to leave that space, but you still need to climb down. And I'm sure these are not like, well laid out steps that
Right.
with railings that you need to come down.
Right. No, look, first of all, you are at 29,000 feet. And just to kind of get a sense, 29,000 feet, if I take a human being from sea level and put them on top of 29,000 feet, they'll die within 5, 8, 10 minutes max. They'll just have a massive heart attack. All the organs will start shutting down and they'll die. So 29,000 feet, even when we get there after 45 days, 50 days of acclimatizing, adjusting to the altitudes with oxygen and everything, every minute that you are spending there, you are closer to a death rather than life. So it's not as if you can spend there forever. You have to go, you have to touch the top, and you have to get back out. And traditionally, as I kind of started getting very interested in mountaineering a decade ago, and I started reading a lot about the entire sport. I don't know if I would call it a sport or probably just a way of life. But as I started kind of, learning more about it and reading more about it and reading so many incidences and books and stories, kind of one thing stood out is a lot of people were dying on their way down. And it kind of got me thinking, isn't going up the harder part, and people should rather be dying while going up and not while coming down? And then I did my first very climb. While it was not something like an Everest, it was still a 20,000 feet mountain. But I realized that I climbed up just fine. It was a 10-day climb and I made it up fine. But when I started walking down, I just had, as if, when I was on top, I literally had gazillion amounts of energy, and the moment half an hour later I had nothing. I just had nothing. It took Herculean effort to just get down from a 20,000 feet mountain that today I just consider something that I could just do.
Right.
But back for the first time I realized, man, this is serious business. There's any mistake and I could have died up there very easily. I could have broken bones, or I could have gotten an infection that could have kind of put me in a lot of trouble. That's when I realized an expedition is not over until you are back down into safety, probably in the base camp or even probably in the city. Until then, you are in the harm's way. And look, I think what I realized is once you get to the top, there's a lot of adrenaline that is probably taking you to the top. But once you are done, there's a crash. You'll have, first of all, you have no energy because you have expended all your energy to go up. You have limited kind of energy in your body. You have finished all of that to go up. And then the last bit kind of adrenaline carries you, and that mental joy, the exhilaration, that emotion carries you. And then suddenly you're left with caffeine piya, and uske baad you just have this crash, or sugar, a coke piya, uske half an hour ke baad you just have this crash where there's just no energy. So kind of, I don't want to compare the two. This is completely different ball game. But it's like at one instance you have full energy in your body, and then on the next instance you are just like feel as if you're dead. And in that kind of a mindset, you still have to focus. Because look, at 28,500 feet, even if I twist my ankle, no one's going to rescue me. There's no human rescue that has happened at 28,500 feet. So if I am going to twist my ankle and if I cannot walk on my own, I'll be a sitting dead body at 28,500 feet. A mountain like Everest does not forgive. Okay, I mean, I don't want to attach human qualities to Everest. Oh, मैं इसे बदला लूँगा. Oh, मैं ये करूँगा. Everest doesn't care. Okay, so if I am going to get into trouble on the mountain that high because of my mistake, then I am going to die. And that is very, very clear I had that clarity very early on in the game. Very early on, by the time I had climbed the first mountain in my life. So I knew that if anything, you always have to have that some reserve in your tank when you are climbing. Imagine if I was standing at Hillary Step, and in my mind I had even an inkling that the reserve is over, I would turn around and I would go home, even though Everest was just 100 feet away from there. Because in my mind, I was very clear that my life is more important than the mountain. Because अगर मैं मर गया तो कौन सा पहाड़ रहने वाला है, कौन सा मैं पहाड़ चढ़ने वाला हूँ. I don't believe in afterlife, I don't believe in rebirth, I don't believe in any of this. Just one life, one chance. I can't be, dying up the mountain. Like a lot of people, a lot of, newbies, they reach out to me and say, hey Kuntal, I'm ready to die for Everest. And I'm like, ये attitude के साथ आओगे, you will 100% die for Everest then.
Right.
Come with an attitude that you want to live for that view, you want to live for that journey, for that experience, and you will actually live. And I have always been with that mindset that I'm not going to even let the fingertip, I'm not going to even compromise my fingertips for Everest. A lot of people are like, एक उंगली कटेगा तो चलेगा. And my thinking always is, एक उंगली का 5 उंगली हो गया, 5 उंगली का 10 उंगली हो गया, 10 उंगली का लंग इन्फेक्शन हो गया, लंग इन्फेक्शन का तुम्हारा लाइफ हो गया.
Right.
At 28,500 feet, तुम माइक्रो सेकेंड्स में अपने लाइफ डेथ का डिसीजंस कर रहे हो. तुम्हारा ब्रेन तो आधा चल नहीं रहा है, उसमें तुम उंगलियों की सोच रहे हो. आई एम लाइक, इफ इन अ डिलेमा 28,500 feet, turn around and go home. Save yourself. There will always be more chances to come back and climb this mountain. Luckily, I had a lot of reserve in my tank, and I knew that I was strong, and that I would be able to get down on my own without any help. Even so, when I was coming down, my Sherpa, and I have a really nice understanding. He expects me to come in top shape, both mental and physical. And when I got to the top, he said, "Look, I'm the Sirdar of the team." Like, he was the expedition leader, and he said that I need to wait for a couple of other people to get to the top. So you go ahead on your own down, and I'll quickly catch up to you within the next 1 or 2 hours. And I was comfortable going. Like, I'm comfortable. I'm a reliable mountaineer. I'm a strong mountaineer. And मैं कोई यहाँ मुंह में मिठू नहीं कर रहा हूँ. But I'm not overconfident. But I'm a pretty decent, confident, pretty reliable, pretty decent mountaineer. And I've done this over a period of years. ऐसे नहीं कि मैं अचानक एक दिन उठा और अच्छा माउंटेनियर बन गया. ये प्रोसेस था, जर्नी था. So I was confident of my skills, but I knew I had to focus, and I had to focus real hard. No mistakes, no that moments of kind of, oh, just पहुंच गए. No letdown of the guard. Get down to the base camp, and then we can do whatever we want. So that is the kind of attitude I go down with, and I even tell a lot of people who reach out to me, that's how you have to be, and that's how you'll stay alive.
Right. I mean, when you come down, two things that I wanted to ask you is, do you just to draw some analogy from cricket, that when you're chasing a big total, you take 10 runs at a time. Would you take the same kind of thing, 10 steps at a time, and break it down into smaller chunks?
We will also do that even going up, not just coming down. I think once you start at the last push to the top of Everest, like, most people think we would be running up, and most people see these YouTube videos of climbers running and doing these things. Everest is such an anti-climax compared to these YouTube and Instagram videos people see. Everest is just, you are like one step. Sometimes we get into this kind of a nice rhythm of 10 steps and 5 breaths. 10 steps and 5 breaths, 10 steps and 5 breaths. And then, kind of, you are always making these smaller milestones. Next rock जो दिख रहा है ना थोड़ा ऊपर, जहाँ वो एंकर है, मैं वहां तक पहुंचूंगा और फिर हम देखेंगे क्या करना है आगे. So you get to the next rock, you get to the next rock, you get to the next rock. कभी रात के अंधेरे से तुम फर्स्ट डॉन की लाइट पे आ गए, फर्स्ट डॉन की लाइट पे ऑलमोस्ट सनराइज तक आ गए. Slowly and steadily, and you keep looking down and you're like, man, I'm climbing, man, I'm getting up and up. And then suddenly the summit is right in front of you, and then you get this final burst of energy, and you kind of get to the top. And then same approach while going down. यहाँ तक पहले जाते हैं, and then you kind of always see how your body is feeling. चलो छोटा break ले लेते हैं, let my body recover a little bit, थोड़ा खा लेते हैं, चलते रहते. You are also always running against time, running against the weather. Weather could go bad, your oxygen could get over, so many things that could go wrong on the mountain, and one of these things go wrong and you could be stuck there and possibly end up dying. So it's always this constant calculations in your mind, I need to stay alive. let's just get out of here.
It looks like, very well laid out, well constrained, a project plan, a Gantt chart with all its dependencies. With both of us being coming from the software industry, that's what I could relate to. The dependencies need to be very well laid out. You mentioned oxygen and all the other things. So it's a game of patience. It's a game of just the right calibration of the mind. And what I wanted to ask you next is, how did you keep that mental? How did you keep talking to yourself? I'm sure would have been pretty lonely, but in all this, you have to keep yourself alive, keep yourself vibrant.
Right.
That to me is something I'm very fascinated to learn.
Right. I would really wanted to give a more dramatic answer. That मेरे लाइफ में ये हुआ, फिर अचानक से मेरा चेंज हो गया, फिर मैंने ये किया. Nothing like that happened, unfortunately. For me, I will tell you what kind of clicks and what gives me that mental edge is having that Everest in life.
Right.
To me, once I had that overarching goal, that Everest, that Everest could be anything. For me, it was climbing Everest, but for someone, it could be the next startup. For someone, it could be, I want to get my master's degree in the US, whatever. I don't know what your Everest is. For my latest mini Everest was I wanted to get a 6-pack abs. And, yes, I went on a journey and got it. But again, just kind of having that goal, especially that overarching goal, for me, that gives me the drive and passion to relentlessly pursue it and become that ghoda with that blinders on, जिसको कुछ नहीं दिखता है, सिर्फ अपना goal दिखता है, सिर्फ अपना target दिखता है. So when I'm down, rarely it will happen on a climb that I will be down or I will be questioning myself that क्या कर रहे हैं, पागल हो गया हूँ क्या, मैं मरूंगा इधर, मैं ये क्या कहाँ पहुंच गया, ऑक्सीजन भी ये हो रहा है, ठंडी लग रही है. Rarely I will question myself that way, but I think whenever I will question myself that way, I will kind of, just revisit why I am doing this, that this is the biggest dream of my life, that this is the goal of my life, that this is what I've been living for, preparing for, doing all this for. So kind of always going back to why I'm doing this and having the Everest in life. And yes, for me it was a personal and a spiritual journey. तो kind of ये अगर होता है, at least मैं ये believe करता हूँ, अगर Everest होगा life में, तो जब भी तुम questioning करोगे ना, so at least you can go back and kind of look at why you are doing this, क्यों important है तुम्हारे लिए, and then kind of helps you go back on the path again and keep following the path again. So I think for me, the mental edge kind of comes from there, just from the fact that I have that Everest in my life, and maybe in some way I'm just built this way. Maybe I have, as I look back upon my formative life, I think I have been someone who has almost always been an extremist in kind of every sense, even from a sense of apathy. If I will be apathetic about certain issue, I will be on extreme side of apathy. I will not have, there's no middle ground in my life for that matter. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि हाँ अगर अच्छी चीज भी करनी है तो मिडिल ग्राउंड में करेंगे, या फिर नहीं करनी है तो मिडिल ग्राउंड में करेंगे. नहीं करना है तो नहीं करना है, लाइक देन आई विल बी ऑन द एपैथी साइड. बट अगर करना है तो 500% डाल के करना है. ये बीच वाला, मुझे मॉडरेशन वाला पाथ मुझे इतना अच्छा नहीं लगता है. सो आई एम नॉट फ्रॉम that school of thought that moderation is good in everything. I think there are certain things where moderation is good to kind of exercise, things like your food that you are eating, and kind of certain things. But I think if you have a goal, why half-ass the goal? Right. I don't get this point of moderation. Why half-ass it? Do it with all passion, right? Put in everything you have. What's the harm in that? I don't see why you should not do it that way. So I kind of come from that school of thought. So maybe that's why if I'm doing something and if I had that Everest in my life, I'm always like 100% all in all the time.
Again, it's like a Boolean function.
I mean, sometimes I feel that my life is maybe too simplistic in that sense. Not simple, but like too simplistic. Like it's all black and white in that sense. Like कहीं कुछ बीच में gray areas बहुत कम है. तो I like it that way. I like to keep things simple. And if someone says it's simplistic, I'm even okay with that.
Phenomenal. Kuntal, 2015, you had a near-death situation.
Right.
Share with us what happened and What was your first introspection after that ordeal? And I saw that video, and while I was watching it, I myself was feeling so suffocated.
Right. See, this was we were climbing Everest for the second time. I had attempted the year before, and there was an accident. Several Sherpas died. Our climbs was cancelled, so we went home. I kind of told myself I'm willing to wait one inconsequential year and try again next year. I'm alive at least. So we came back in 2015 and things were kind of good. Everest is climbed in stages, so we had kind of finished about almost 50% of climbing, and we were at the base camp. And I remember it was April 25th, 11:55 in the morning, and suddenly there, like our entire dining tent was shaking, and kind of we knew we were in middle of an earthquake. But as soon as we all ran out and we were standing on the glacier, this thing started shaking a lot, like kind of bigger shaking, like as if I was standing on a giant swing that was swaying from one end to the another end, and you're like kind of standing on an icy glacier. So we could feel it, and we knew this was a gigantic earthquake. This was not like a 6 magnitude earthquake. We like knew this was probably an 8 magnitude earthquake, and something like डर लग रहा था थोड़ा कि क्या होगा, क्योंकि इतना बड़ा
इंडिकेशन पहले मिला था क्या? आप लोग जैसे वो कैंप में थे, डिड यू गेट एनी इंडिकेशन कि कुछ अजीब सा हो रहा है, और एनी
हम लोग जब डाइनिंग टेंट में बैठे थे तभी हमारा सीट थोड़ा शेक होने को लगा.
अच्छा.
एंड I have lived in California for 6 years, and I remember back in 2003 I was in a 3.1 magnitude earthquake in my at my workplace, and I knew सब हिल रहा था मेरे ऑफिस में, और we had all gone under the desk. This was a 3 magnitude earthquake. तो यहाँ जब भी सीट हिलना शुरू हो गया, I am like, बॉस ये तो earthquake है. This doesn't feel very natural. ऐसा नहीं है कि ग्लेशियर के अंदर से कुछ disturbance है. This feels something bigger. We knew it was an earthquake, and we were kind of all tentative कि क्या होगा. Kind of the earthquake stopped, and then for 10 seconds there was this calm, like you are standing on the base camp and you can see everyone around, all outside their tents and all looking around everywhere. And then 10 seconds later, there was this loud boom, almost as if a bomb blast that had happened somewhere. So, उस दिन कैसा हुआ था? There was a low fog that had set in at the base camp. So now we can't see any mountains. Like in this picture behind, you can see how everything is crystal clear. You can see the mountain. Now imagine a fog is set up, and तुम देख ही नहीं सक रहे हो कि पहाड़ यहाँ exist भी कर रहा है. So that day, low fog, we can't see any mountain, but we can hear a lot of noise. Of like a bomb blast or something coming our way. We kind of had an inkling that an avalanche was coming our way.
Right.
अब पता नहीं है कहाँ से आ रहा है, क्योंकि कुछ दिख ही नहीं रहा है. तो avalanche का आवाज is coming from the east, which is towards Everest. So we are all looking towards Everest, looking towards this white ball of kind of just cloud, and thinking that यहाँ से कुछ आएगा या maybe कुछ दूर हो रहा है. And then suddenly in that moment, all these people standing in the next camp in front of us, they all started rushing towards Everest. So I am standing here and thinking कि क्यों एवरेस्ट की तरफ भाग रहे हैं? क्या पागल हो गए क्या ये लोग? वहीं से कुछ आने वाला और ये एवरेस्ट की तरफ ही भाग रहे हैं. Then we realized कि हमारे पीछे कुछ है शायद. So we all turned around, and if you have seen that video, and then we all of us suddenly turn around, and we are faced with this gigantic cloud of snow and ice, like less than 3 seconds away from us. And I mean, for me, I was like standing and thinking, I mean, ऐसा लग नहीं रहा था that I'm going to die. I was actually very certain that I was going to die. So in that moment, like when you are so certain about your death, kind of एक अच्छी फीलिंग आ रही थी, हाँ ठीक है अभी मैं मर जाने वाला हूँ, यार अभी डर नहीं है यार कि मैं मर जाने वाला हूँ. बट ऑन द अदर हैंड देयर वाज दिस इंटेंस फीलिंग ऑफ डीप सैडनेस दैट यार लाइफ अभी खत्म हो जाने वाला है, कि यार इतना सारा करने का बाकी है, एंड दैट नाउ दिस हाउ आई एम गोइंग टू एंड, दैट दिस इज हाउ माय लाइफ इज गोइंग टू फिनिश. सो लाइक एट वन एंड देयर वाज दिस रिलीफ दैट डन, अब फिनिश. एक जर्नी था लंबा, 35 साल 36 साल का जर्नी, अब सब खत्म हो रहा है इधर. But on other hand, it was like deep sadness. यार नहीं खत्म होना चाहिए यार. Maybe if I have that chance to kind of escape from this. But then you look at the thing and you're like, ना left भाग सकता हूँ, ना right भाग सकता हूँ, ना बीच में भाग सकता हूँ, ना side में भाग सकता हूँ. There's nowhere to run. This entire thing is covering the whole sky. It is as if the mountain, पूरा फट के हमारी तरफ गिर चुका है अभी. So we were three of us, me, a German climber, and a Japanese climber, and all three instinctively ran and we hid behind a tent. We just wanted to hide behind something. We don't know, didn't realize that a tent was not going to save us. That piece of plastic, how is it going to save us from the fury of nature, from that ice tsunami that was going to coming towards us? But we went behind, and like within microseconds that avalanche hit us. And I kind of was under the assumption that, like a typical avalanche, we'll be buried under about a couple of feet of snow. Within minutes, the snow will freeze, become like concrete, and then slowly over the period of next maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes, we will all end up dying because we'll run out of breath and it will be like, zinda gaad diya kisi ne hame aur bahut buri maut hogi hamari. And I was not looking forward to it in any way. I would rather have an instant death and, be finished with all the suffering, but this was going to be terrible. I was terrified now. Like, initially, kaisa feeling tha, oh, I'm relieved, I'm going to die. Then, oh, I don't want to die. And then suddenly the whole kind of thing hits my mind and I'm terrified that I'm going to die in a very bad way now. And then the thing hits me, and after 10 seconds, I realize that there's less than 2 inches of snow on my body. So it's kind of, a feeling of relief again that I'm not going to die. But then I'm trying to breathe and I'm like, nothing's coming in. It's like, पहली बार तो थोड़ा ice का particles ही आ गया गले में. I'm trying to breathe now, suck in air harder. And there's just nothing coming. For initially I thought maybe a couple of breaths, I'm just panicking because of this overall situation. But then I'm kind of, relaxed and I'm trying to breathe. I'm just not able to suck in any air. So I am now like, पहले earthquake से बचे, अब avalanche से बचे. ऐसे लगा बच गए, but now it feels like I'm going to die again. Because now it feels like someone is like putting a plastic bag on top of me and like kind of trying to choke me and kill me. And I'm sucking hard and nothing's happening. And then the guy next to me, the German mountaineer, he kind of opened his jacket and said, Kuntal, you can come inside my jacket and breathe. So I just right away instinctively went inside his jacket and I'm like, whoa, it's almost as if, एक बच्चा पैदा होता है तो कैसे वो पहली breath लेता है तो कैसे like, it's like that life entering your body. That's kind of, the feeling I got, that life entering my body. And I'm like, oh, I think now I'm going to survive. I think I'm going to stay alive after this. And then kind of, for the next 2.5 minutes, that's what I did. Couple of things. I think what had actually happened in terms of us getting thrown off was, the earthquake induced a gigantic avalanche to happen from a mountain called Pumori, which is diagonally opposite Everest. तो imagine करो Everest मेरे सामने है और ये पीछे वाला जो mountain है वहां से avalanche आ रहा है. The problem was that, sorry, and तो कैसा, the reason we got caught off guard is because echo हो रहा था आवाज एवरेस्ट की तरफ से.
Correct.
क्योंकि इतना gigantic avalanche था कि echo एवरेस्ट की तरफ से आ रहा था. And we were all kind of caught off guard due to that. And then second, I think it was not the avalanche itself that kind of hit us. When that gigantic block of snow and ice hit the ground, it kind of almost gave rise to an aftershock kind of a feeling, which kind of ripped the base camp. So a lot of injuries that happened in the base camp, or about 21 people died at base camp. These were not people who died by getting buried under the snow, but these were all injury which were trauma injuries. People just getting thrown off, airborne, like, एक kilometer दूर वो लोग, they were thrown off and they just fell down and died, and some of them got hit by big boulders and just died. So there was a lot of aftershock of the avalanche, which kind of, what had covered the base camp for almost a couple of minutes. Almost समझो ना किसी ने वो हिट का स्प्रे हो ना, पूरे रूम में वो हिट का स्प्रे मार दिया हो. Imagine if you are in all that amount of aerosol, would you be able to breathe? You would just struggle to breathe. And so inside that jacket, there were still ambient pockets of air. So I could kind of, go inside that jacket and kind of breathe inside that for that time being until the avalanche kind of just, passed over us and things kind of settled down. So that's what eventually happened at the base camp. And look, 21 dead, base camp, 100 injured. It was like a war zone kind of a feeling. destruction everywhere, everything, it was like अगर मैं before after picture करूँ ना base camp का, the after picture was just flattened base camp, all tents destroyed, everything. At least the middle portion of the base camp where we were kind of located was non-existent after kind of this impact. And we called Kathmandu via satellite phone, and we quickly realized that mass scale destruction, probably 10,000 people dead in Kathmandu, half a million people displaced from their homes, and just mass scale destruction everywhere. And since you asked the question, what were like the initial kind of reflections, I think initial reflections were again a reflection of just gratitude that I'm alive. I mean, that I have this second life, that I have this opportunity, that that I'm alive, and the guy about 50 feet away from me in the next camp was dead.
Right.
And that I was just lucky, because if I was 50 feet towards the right, I would be dead, as if I was there. So that I was just lucky that I was that this is bonus, that I now have a second life. And again, gratitude towards my friend, that in such dire moments where most people would just try to save their life, he had the presence of mind to even look at us, look at the situation we were in, and kind of help us out. So I think that is just what I felt after that. And in my mind, I think a day after, I just realized that it doesn't make any sense in climbing this mountain. Entire Nepal is struggling. People need to rebuild this country and not focus on climbing a stupid mountain. I mean, I'm calling Everest a stupid mountain, but I think in the kind of context in that time itself, it didn't make any sense in climbing a mountain. That was the last of the things I was worried about. And as an expedition leader, I took a call. We are going home. I mean, I just told my lead Sherpa, who was kind of on board with this whole idea. And I think luckily that year, every team made their own decision and kind of just said, let's just get out of here. Because if anything happens on Everest, like let's say another avalanche, another aftershock, some more accidents on Everest, people naturally gravitate towards Everest, gravitate towards things on Everest, and then you kind of divert away all the resources that could be used to better rebuild the country, the rural areas where the more destruction had happened, and not people climbing mountains for recreation. That was the last thing on on kind of at least my mind, my Sherpa's mind, and a lot of people who I met and who made the same decision. So I think it kind of just made sense to go home, and that's what we all did. And to me, kind of that night, sleeping in the tent, we were a little worried. I had told my friend that agar aur ek avalanche aayega na, to I want to kind of not die in my sleep. I want to be able to have a chance to run and outrun the avalanche again. So we kind of were taking turns to sleep, just so that one of us was kind of awake, and if they heard something, they could kind of wake up the other guy. And I think when it was my turn to kind of stay awake, there are certain of these moments in life when like pura life rewind hota hai tumhare samne, like all the major milestones that you have kind of achieved in your life, kind of you reflect back upon that. So I was reflecting upon that, and I'm like, I haven't done anything until now major in my life, and now with this bonus that I have gotten, this second opportunity I have gotten, I think the idea is no longer to kind of step back, but the idea is now to actually push on the pedal, not give up on my dreams, and pursue every single passion, every single thing that I want to pursue to the fullest, live my life to the fullest. Because standing there, I didn't even know if I was going to be alive till tomorrow. Forget, people plan for 60 years. Oh, मैं 60 years में यहाँ जाऊँगा, वहाँ जाऊँगा, and I'm like, मुझे पता भी नहीं मैं कल तक जिंदा रहूँगा. 60 years के बारे में मैं नहीं सोचने वाला हूँ अभी. So kind of a little shift. Well, I have always been like this, where I need to follow my passions, where I need to follow my dreams. I think after this, a lot of that became kind of on an urgent basis. I need to now be more sensitized, put in a little bit better effort in my training, in my preparation, in just my overall how I lead my life. And kind of the destruction that we saw in Nepal also had me reflect back on I'm such a selfish person that I'm constantly just thinking about my dreams and never thinking about how I can give back to the community or what can I do for the community. Yes, mountaineering will always remain kind of a very, very personal. Like people always ask me why do I climb, and I always never have a good answer for them. Because it's a very personal, because it's a very spiritual journey for me, and there's nothing that I'm doing to kind of contribute back to the community. But then I kind of thought that I need to actively get involved, kind of work. Yes, mountaineering will always be an integral part of my life, but I need to also have other goals and other dreams where I can actively also contribute towards creating a society where people have the privileges that I have, because I can pursue my dreams. Someone who is just living day by day, hand to mouth, oh, where am I going to get my today's meal from? Will I have a roof to sleep for today? If they're just struggling with those things, how are they ever going to climb Everest in their life? It's just not going to happen, right? Because climbing Everest is like not even a nice to have. It's not even there. मस्ट हैव्स ही इतने डिफिकल्ट है अचीव करने को, बाकी कुछ है ही नहीं तुम्हारे लाइफ में. सो काइंड ऑफ गेट टू अ पॉइंट वेयर एटलीस्ट इफ आई कैन इन सम वे use my privilege to contribute back in some way where I can create or have a tangible difference in some people's lives and give them the opportunity that I have. So look, I'm not here to change the world. I'll be very honest. I don't want to overwhelm myself and not be able to contribute in any way. I have done this in past and I don't want to get into that cycle. But I'm very clear that अगर मैं 100 लोगों के भी लाइफ में एक tangible difference make कर पाया ना, I'm happy with that, and I'm satisfied with if I can, but no half-assing there. तो like हाँ मैंने थोड़ा पैसा दे दिया and मैंने इस NGO को डोनेट कर दिया, हो गया. नहीं, वैसा half-ass नहीं करना है मुझे. So since then I have been part of a non-profit organization. I sit on the board of that non-profit. It works for the education of underprivileged and under-resourced kids in Nepal, and have been very actively involved in the day-to-day. Every year when I go to Nepal, multiple times I'm meeting with the kids, I'm meeting with all the teachers, and kind of involved in a much more tangible way in their lives, and hoping to continue making the difference through that. So that's kind of my smaller mini Everest on the side that I found through this bigger Everest that I was climbing. And again, I call it a mini Everest. It's not really a mini Everest. It's still a bigger Everest of my life.
Phenomenal, Kuntal. I mean, so engrossed listening as you were speaking. It's to me what I felt is perhaps you've been able to scale and discover the true meaning and happiness within yourself, and that's coming out, so evident. And often, in today's world specifically, we all talk about power, specifically, in the corporate world, the political scenarios around us. It's all about, how do I acquire, how do I win? But, the real win is what I could sense you've been able to experience. And it is not anything to do with the materialistic thing. I think what I could understand, your experience and, the whole purpose that you discovered as a result of your mountaineering experience, I think is what inspires you, to go back to the mountains and take up new challenges.
Right.
So, well done. Congratulations, and specifically the good work you're doing, in spreading education, and so really, really motivating. Kuntal, we are almost towards the end of the episode. What I wanted to ask you before we finish is one advice to our viewers who are watching this episode.
One advice. So I can actually give a couple of advices.
Sure.
I tried climbing Everest in 2014, and kind of in some way I failed. While I didn't fail because I didn't even attempt. So if you don't attempt something, how can you fail at that? But then people's minds, or in everyone who's kind of looking at it as an outsider, I failed because I didn't climb to the top. I went back to climb in 2015, and kind of in some way I failed again because I was not able to climb to the top. I think that probably when I came back home was probably the only time in this entire last decade where I had like some negative thoughts around the fact that will I be able to climb? That I have now been going for twice. I have, I'm struggling to get to the top. Something or the other is happening. So for the first time in my life, I was having some sort of self doubts, and but kind of again realize that this is a bonus. This is a second life. This is a second chance that I've gotten, and that my dream is my baby, and that I have to protect my dream, and that I cannot give up on my dream. I cannot give up on my baby, because if I do, then regrets for the rest of the life are only going to be mine. So I did not give up. I continued along. I went back to climb Everest in 2016, and I made it to the top. So one of the things that I want to tell people is that I think don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on your journey, because most of the times when you are ready to give up, the summit is almost there. It's like, तुम just पहुंच गए हो और तुम give up कर रहे हो. Again, it is very contextual. If you have put in all the effort, if you have done everything, or at least you feel that you have done everything, and then you are kind of ready to give up, I would say don't give up. Try a little harder and you will get to the top. At the same time, when I went to climb Everest for the third time, I had actually told my wife that if I got down from the plane, and even if I twisted the ankle while getting down from the plane, and that would mean that I had to cancel the Everest climb and come home, I would not have gone back again and climbed it, because I had given everything I had to climbing this mountain, and that it was time to move on and do something else, and that not climbing Everest is not the end of the world. So I kind of just wanted to show both the sides of the kind of story, where I was very much ready to then say that I would move on and I would climb other mountains. It's not as if Everest is the only mountain in the world. There are many more mountains, both metaphorical and physical, that I wanted to climb in the world. So I was ready to kind of do that. And one thing I will say you, and I think everyone says this, so I don't want to kind of sound cliched, but look, when I stood on top of Everest, I suddenly didn't become any Zen monk or anything, or suddenly just didn't become enlightened. Not that I'm enlightened now or a Zen monk now, but heck, on the top, I was so knackered that I could barely, and no changes happened in me truly on the top. But all the changes, all the transformation that happened in my life happened during the journey. And so I think it is also important to kind of enjoy the journey and enjoy the process and enjoy the experience. I think people are too caught up in getting to the top. Nothing wrong with that. Look, if I didn't make it to the top of Everest, most people would not be talking to me. And not that I did Everest for that. It was my dream. It was my goal. So I wanted to get to the top and experience how it feels. So yes, I truly understand why people want to get to the top of their respective Everests. At the same time, I think they kind of, lose track of the process where all the learning and all the transformation happens. So while I am not someone who exercises moderation all the time, I would also say that keep a nice balance here, a balance between the journey, between the process and getting to the top. And that not getting to the top is also not the end of the world. So kind of, these are the two learnings I can kind of share from my experiences. And again, these may sound very cliched because everyone says don't give up and everyone says enjoy the journey, and it's kind of all repeated stuff. But I experienced it firsthand through this last decade, and so I can kind of say from the personal experience that these two things are really, really important.
Absolutely, Kuntal. Thank you so much. But my personal favorite, I will ever and forever remember is 10 steps and 5 breaths. That I think is for me a very, very important lesson. And thank you so much, for being on the show, and all the very best for your future endeavors. And I look forward to seeing you once things are settled, and specifically, be safe. You being in Mumbai with all the things that are going around, be safe and stay happy, and see you soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations, Kuntal. You're very strong, man.